All right, everybody. It is Monday night, and the Seahawks have decided to hit us with a little bit of breaking news, and it's actually pretty significant. After a weekend filled with assurances from the organization that nothing major was going to change, the head coach was going to be back, the GM was going to be back, seems like the quarterback is going to be back, although we'll talk about that a little more later. We get this from Bob Condotta, confirmed by other sources as well. On Twitter, the Seattle Times has learned that the Seahawks are expected to part ways with defensive coordinator Ken Norton Jr. and defensive passing game coordinator Andre Curtis. So, some of you guys have been trying to get Ken Norton out of here for the last 2.5 years. You finally got your way. Maybe it took a little too long. Maybe it's a little too late for you. But Ken Norton Jr. is going to be looking elsewhere for employment this offseason. And Andre Curtis goes with him, which makes sense in a way because most of the defensive struggles over the last couple years have been on the side of the passing game defense. So it's not the wholesale change that I and some others were hoping for. It is change. And right up front, I want to say this. This is good. This is good. I'm not disputing that at all. If anybody came here expecting me to go on and on about how this doesn't matter, nothing's going to change, I don't necessarily think that. I think this is a good thing. For the simple fact that Ken Norton Jr. finally got held accountable for his failures. Ken Norton Jr. had been the defensive coordinator in Seattle for 4 full seasons now. His defenses have ranked in points allowed, I believe, 11th, 23rd, 15th, and 11th. Something like that. So, bottom line is, he wasn't really getting it done. You have to remember, before Ken Norton Jr. became the defensive coordinator, this Seahawks team had 4 straight number 1 defenses. They had a number 3 defense the year after that 4-year stretch. And then you had that last Chris Richard year where we were like, I think we were 9th. So top 10, top 10, top 10, top 10 over and over again. Ken Norton shows up and he can't put together one top 10 scoring defense year. Now, granted, at the first part of it, he didn't have a lot of talent to work with, but as the years went on, we got more and more talent for him, and he still couldn't quite put it together. So, for that simple reason, he did have to go, and him going is good. And Andre Curtis going along with him is also good because these last 2 years, our run defense has been rock solid. You cannot complain about this run defense the last 2 seasons. I think that pretty much all of our defensive struggles over the last 2 years, outside of maybe 1 or 2 games, can be linked to us giving up big chunk plays in the passing game and not being able to get off the field on 3rd down. And it makes sense why he would be the guy that you push out along with Norton. So I take this as a positive. Let me just say that right now. Is it going to matter? I don't think it's going to matter as much as it should. And I will tell you guys exactly why. If we go over to this Corbin Smith tweet, I'm told Seahawks are leaning towards elevating Clint Hurt to defensive coordinator, but other names will be considered with Ken Norton Jr. out. Hurt had been linked to Miami defensive coordinator job at college level, so this may be moved to keep him around. That is why I can't say this is going to matter all that much. It might matter a little bit. You might see a little less defensive linemen dropping into coverage here. I mean, Clint Hurt was a defensive line coach. You would think he would have a decent understanding of how to use those players. But the point is, we're replacing Ken Norton Jr. with somebody else in-house who Carroll has full control over. Clint Hurt is just another defensive coach that Pete Carroll is going to be able to puppeteer. Not going to be able to do anything different because Clint Hurt has been under Carroll for, I think, some time now. I can't remember exactly how long, but he's been around. And at the end of the day, it's going to still be Pete Carroll's defense. So will it matter a little bit? Quite possibly. Is it going to matter a lot? I'm dubious. Look, there's a clear difference in the way this defense plays between when Norton was here versus when Quinn was here, when Bradley was here, when Richard was here. You can definitely tell that things changed a little bit with those defensive coordinators. So to act like this is completely worthless would be an exaggeration, but you're not going to see any massive changes on that side if we truly do hire a guy like Clint Hurt. If this team really wants me to get excited, then go get Vic Fangio and tell him he's got control of the defense and Carroll's just going to focus on being a head coach. Go get Brian Flores, although granted Brian Flores is probably going to become a head coach somewhere. If he doesn't, go offer him a ton of money to be your defensive coordinator for a year. Tell him, hey, it's your show. It's your show. We're going to hang back and watch and see what you can do with Jamal Adams and Darryl Taylor and whatever else we can put together on this defense that has supreme talent. So if we go this way, things are not going to get drastically better. And that is, to me, the question that needs to be answered in the coming few days. Now that we have moved on from Ken Norton Jr., how are we going to handle his absence? Because Clint Hurt, what's he done on a defensive coordinator level that tells you he can do this? Because I know what Vic Fangio has done. I know what Brian Flores has done. I know these guys have great defensive minds. I know these guys are capable of independent thinking about NFL defense and putting together a great defense. We've seen it before. We've seen them have, I don't want to say success, but not even be a disaster as a head coach. So as a defensive coordinator, if anything, they would be overqualified. Vic Fangio is a guy who is a great coordinator, not quite good enough to be a head coach. Flores might even be a little bit better than that. But instead, it looks like the Seahawks are leaning towards just elevating one of their in-house guys, somebody who will probably never, ever have a chance to be a head coach, probably never, ever going to rise above being a yes-man defensive coordinator. And it's just hard for me to believe anything radical is going to change. The changes you're going to see are going to be like the little play calling here and there. The defensive play calling is going to be a little different under Hurt probably, but are you going to see a drastic departure from the 4-3 cover 3? Probably not. Are you going to see anything that Carroll doesn't do? Probably not. Are you going to see a 3-4? God, no. It's a step in the right direction because you took a guy who had not performed these last 4 years and you moved him out. You did. Credit to you for that. I do think there is some merit to celebrating the fact that they looked at a guy who was not doing his job well enough and said, we are going to hold you accountable by relieving you of your job. But who you're going to replace that guy with is going to tell me whether or not this really means anything. And if you elevate a guy like a Clint Hurt, or really just about anybody from in-house, like, Aaron Curry and Deshaun Shedd are also in the defensive coaching crew. If it's one of those guys, then it's just going to tell me that things aren't really going to change and it's still going to be Pete Carroll's show. And I don't think we have enough talent to make the Pete Carroll show work the way it needs to. I don't. But breaking news, Ken Norton is out. We don't yet know who is in. Andre Curtis also out. We also don't know who's going to be replacing him. We can spend a little bit of time dreaming about the Vic Fangios and the Brian Floreses of the world, but it seems like we're just going to elevate in-house, which means that, god dang it, Pete Carroll's going to continue to have full control over this organization on every level. See you guys later. Go Hawks.